Let's see. All right. Today we're going to talk about counters, addendums, modifications, amendments, and anything that subsequently modifies or adds to a contract or other document used in our transaction. I've already let people in the classroom here know this, but the residential listing agreement class that I missed when I locked myself out, I will try to make up this Friday if the classroom is available. And so keep your eyes and ears open to see if anything's added to the calendar and if you sent out a message. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up a PDF I created. I think if I can find it. Here we are. Okay, can everyone at home? You guys can't. You guys at home now see the buyer counter offer.
Yes.
Nay?
Yes.
All right. So for counter offers, there's a buyer counter offer, a seller counter offer, and a seller multiple counter offer. All right. So when an offer is made, what is always going to be the first document that's issued if that offer is not being accepted or rejected? Counter offer. Which one? Seller counter offer. Seller counter offer is SCO. Or form SCO. There can be more than one seller counter offer, so there's going to be a space here to enter a number. Okay, so the first one is always going to be number 1. All right. And if a seller issues a counter offer, a buyer can accept that counter offer, or they can counter it with a buyer counter offer. And so we have seller counter offer 1, and in our hypothetical situation, the buyer is not actually going to accept the seller's counter. They're going to counter it themselves. So this would be buyer counter offer number 1. Any subsequent round would be seller counter offer 2, buyer counter offer 2. So the whole purpose of a counter offer is just to address items that are not accepted. So if on the seller counter offer, items 1, 2, and 3, out of which 1 is acceptable, but 2 and 3 are not. On the buyer counter offer, we are going to counter items 2 and 3, saying what we do want in place of what does something propose. So let's say the seller counter offer said purchase price to be $1 million. Close of escrow, item 2. Close of escrow to be 20 days. Item 3, there to be no loan contingency. If we're countering back as the buyers, saying, no, we need a 30-day close, we would say under other terms. Item 1, close of escrow to be 30 days from acceptance. Item 2, loan contingency to be whatever it was, 17 days, whatever it is that we need, right? We do not address the previous item 1 on the seller counter offer because we are accepting that term. My buyers are fine with the $1 million purchase price. Okay, so one of the biggest mistakes I see with newer agents is that they're addressing terms that were accepted. We only address terms in a subsequent counter offer that are not accepted. Also, if there are any intangibles in a counter offer, I must counter them. Let me explain to you. As a listing agent, I will at times put an intangible on purpose under other terms as a tactic to buy myself time. I'm expecting another offer, but I don't want these buyers to walk. Therefore, instead of saying purchase price to be $1 million, I say $1 million or higher. You cannot accept that, can you? It's not a defined term. It's an intangible. So there is my tactic And no one can prove why I'm making my counter offer impossible to accept. But chances are I either want or hire. But in this situation, I would probably be doing it more often in a multiple counter offer situation if I was trying to do anything other than buy time. Okay, so if you are, getting single seller counter offers and you're seeing an intangible, either the listing agent is an idiot or they're trying to buy time. When can a seller multiple counter offer be used? Only when the listing agent has more than one valid offer. What do I mean valid? There is an expiration date on offers. Are we awake today?
Yes.
Okay. So seller multiple counter offer can only be issued when we have more than one offer. So let's say I have 2 offers. Okay, I'm expecting more. I got one very early on. It just expired, a couple of hours ago. I only have one in hand that's still valid. Even though I have 2 offers, I cannot use a seller multiple counter offer unless I contact the buyer's agent for the offer that's expired and I say, please extend the expiration of your offer. I'm getting ready to counter. Or I have to wait until a 3rd offer comes in. Okay. So just be careful about that. Don't get yourself in hot water because you're not paying attention to expiration dates and times on buyer offers. Every class, I'm happy it's not happening in this one. In every class, I have one agent who's like, what about if my client wants me to issue a multiple counter offer to make the buyer think that there's competition so that they'll offer more money? That's called fraud. That's called fraud. And this is a cardinal foul, right? Cardinal sin. You do not issue a multiple counter offer if you do not have multiples. Okay, you can lose your license over that, and you should.
If I'm the buyer's agent,
Yes.
and the seller's agent is saying, well, we have multiple offers, and can I see them?
No, you cannot see them. However, you can contact their broker if they have one, if they're not their own broker. If you're really concerned, or you can have Mike Rosales step in and contact their broker. You cannot get proof. Someone else's offer is confidential information. On the flip side, if you are concerned that
They may not be telling them.
they may not be even showing your offer to the seller, you can ask that
Friday.
the seller complete the section on the very bottom of the RPA that says the offer was reviewed but rejected. Okay. So there is that. Does this kind of fraud happen? Constantly. I hate it. I can't stand it. It disgusts me.
So I've got a quick question. Sorry, this is Russell here. So we bought a property. This is a scenario on the market Friday. We receive an offer on Friday. Average terms are 3 days to respond back. If we are in a seller multiple counter, can we say back to the agent that this offer is reinstated? Can this offer be reinstated?
Yes, you can counter back that the buyer's expiration is hereby extended to, but if you don't have 2 valid, you couldn't have issued that multiple counter offer to begin with. So you need to buyer's agent to give you an extension of time addendum to their buyer offer or an amendment to it, extending the expiration date for you.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. So let's say I have 5 offers. Okay, we're talking about Russell's situation here now. Let's say I have 5 offers and one of them's expired. Can I issue a multiple counter offer to everyone? Yes. I will just, under the terms on the multiple counter offer for that expired offer, say buyer's offer is here, the expiration of buyer offer is hereby extended to blah, blah, blah date at blah, blah, blah time. Okay. But I can only do that if I have at least 2 valid. Otherwise, I have to issue them a single counter offer, which I probably don't want to do because they can accept it, right? I want to play all my buyers at this point, or I need to get the buyer's agent to extend the expiration. All right, so we understand the difference between buyer counter offer, seller counter offer. and seller multiple counteroffer. Yes?
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions at home or in the classroom?
No.
Okay. I do have a quick question. What if your buyer wants to accept the seller multiple counteroffer? Are you under contract then? Do you have an accepted offer? No. Because multiple buyers can accept a seller multiple counteroffer. So on multiple counteroffer, there is section 8, where the seller selects which one they want to go with. As a listing agent, I don't usually set myself up for this because when I have that many offers, I am typically putting an intangible on my seller multiple counteroffer, blank price or higher, best and final price, whatever it is. There's an intangible usually on there when I'm playing with multiple because I don't want to limit buyers to increasing their price or providing more attractive terms. Okay, so there's usually that intangible, and so the buyer must counter me back, and it is usually the seller who's accepting in a multiple situation. Not always. Sometimes I'll get down to, can you switch from multiple counteroffer to single counteroffer?
Yes.
Absolutely. Let's say like one of my buyer offers just blows all of the other offers out of the water. As the listing agent, the seller and I can counter that one buyer maybe for clarification purposes on an item or something like cleanup, and we can just counter that buyer. Okay, so we can switch to singular. What happens if a buyer makes an offer while I'm in the process of multiple counter offers? What would I use? What document would I use to counter them? Multiple. I'm still issuing a multiple counter offer. Unless that offer came in that's just so good that I want to just have a private side one-on-one conversation in the counter offer process, that buyer. I wouldn't do that though. I want to make sure that buyer is aware of the strength of my position if I have multiple offers, right? So I want to use that multiple counter offer form anytime I legally can. Addendum. All right, so addendum is very closely related to amendment. Okay, and we used to only have addendum. A couple of years ago, amendment was added. Okay. And so a lot of older school agents will still use an addendum when they should be using an amendment. I'm going to teach you the key difference, and that's the root word. Addendum starts with add. Okay, amendment starts with amend. Amend means to change. Okay, so if I'm adding to something I'm submitting originally, I want to use an addendum. If I'm adding terms that have never been addressed, I can use an addendum or an amendment. So things that are never addressed, that haven't been addressed. I can use both, but I would prefer to use an amendment then, because once I have an accepted offer, okay, anything I'm adding really is changing it, which means amend, right? Change means amend. So addendum is really for when I run out of space on a contract or a document. Okay. And then amendment is for when I'm adding something to an agreement that has already been completely negotiated, or I'm changing a term or terms of an accepted agreement. And there's a key difference here. On an addendum, there is no signature for approval. No signature for approval, right? I'm making an addendum to a document. I always have to identify what type of document it is. The way that the addendum is written says that it's an addendum to the purchase agreement unless you modify it. There's also a blank space where you can check other and type in the name of the document you're adding an addendum to. An addendum can be added to pretty much anything. You oftentimes will run out of space on documents that you're submitting in your transaction, and an addendum is used for that purpose. An addendum is used to modify language on a contract or a document where the option that you want is not available. It's also used for clarification purposes. I also use it when I believe that the other agent is perhaps not sharing all of the information or my point of view on an argument that I want that principal client, buyer or seller to see, okay? So while I may have a very compelling argument for a request for repair or something, not all agents act the way they should, particularly higher end agents. They respond for their clients without ever really involving the buyer or seller into what is going on or showing them the documentation, which is not legal. And so if I have a feeling that the other agent is not sharing what I want them to, since the addendum has to be signed, there's a higher chance the client's going to see it, not always. So will I incorrectly use an addendum to get my fucking point across sometimes? I will. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it is not. Will I try to guise it as if it has information on it? Yes. But really, it's so that that client who I don't have direct access to can hear my voice. Okay. Amendment. Oh, and by the way, addendum has a number placed too. So there are different schools of thought on how to number addendums. If I have an addendum to a residential purchase agreement at the beginning of my transaction, when I submit my offer, it'll be number 1, right? I have to keep track though. If I draft an amendment, an addendum to the purchase agreement, again, it needs to be number 2 and subsequently 3 and 4. Some agents believe anytime an addendum is used, the number should go higher. So if I have an addendum to the purchase agreement, it's number 1. If I have an addendum to a counteroffer, that should be number 2. Both are correct. I tend to keep addendum 1 to my counteroffer because there could be addendum 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, just as I'd have a second addendum 1 to my RPA if that's the case. But that's just my methodology of doing it. As long as it's clear and you're consistent and you're not misnumbering them, you can't have 2 addendum number 1s to a counteroffer, then you're good. Just be consistent and be clear. All right. All right, back to amendment. I told you that the key difference is there's an acceptance portion. There's an expiration and acceptance portion to amend an amendment. Why? Why does it have to be accepted? Because we're changing or adding a term to an agreement that's already been concluded, right? So we can't just issue this and expect the other party, the buyer or seller, to agree to it. We already have an accepted agreement. Bottom line, we may all want to change it. And if we do, then you're going to have this acceptance signed. This expiration, guys, a lot of times I make this longer because the other agent in the party just might not feel like getting this document signed is all that important. It is important. So I kind of ride them to get that signature back to me since it has an expiration because I don't want to do my work twice, right? But I will also hedge my bets and make the expiration a little bit longer because I may be dealing with a lazy agent or an agent who's traveling or someone who's got a really busy TC. Because I guarantee you, if they're using a transaction coordinator, it's going to be their transaction coordinator getting this signed. I will oftentimes, when I deliver something like this, also say, you know, this has an expiration, so please get it signed and get it back to me before the expiration. I'll just give them that reminder. Remember, it's very important to stroke the ego of other agents you're working with. It's very important to be liked. So do it kindly. You know, I would do it more from the angle of, hey, don't be lazy. I'm worried about having to do my job twice because you don't do your job. It would be more like the, you know, these things have an expiration and we don't want to do this twice. So please get it back to me ASAP, right? So it's all about like, it's not about the information you deliver, it's about the delivery. And I want you to constantly think about that. And remember, no matter what the other agent is like on the other side, they're your only ambassador to their principal, right? So you need to make sure that you're treating them with respect, even when they don't deserve it. And how they feel about you is going to affect your clients and your career in perpetuity forever. If I don't like you, I had a bad experience with you in a transaction, I think you're lazy or shady, I'm going to tell my clients that the next time your name comes across my desk on something I'm working on. That's going to happen. So more important to be liked than it is to be right. If you're liked well enough, you'll get both done. Got it? Okay. All right, amendment of existing terms. Again, you have to say what it is amending. So the way that the document is written is that it's for the purchase contract unless you alter it. And remember, on all of these documents, you have to say dated. So if I'm modifying a residential purchase agreement, I need to go back to the residential purchase agreement, look up in that top left corner for the legal reference date on the residential purchase agreement and enter that date in here. Okay. Just like if I am amending a request for repair, same thing. I need to go to that request for repair document and look at the dated date. Okay. And then I can write whatever I want into on here, or write in here on this section 1. Expiration acceptance, great. All right, extension of time amendment, excuse me. Why is it an amendment? Well, all of our contingency timeframes are already identified in our contract by the time we open an escrow. We wouldn't be issuing an amendment until we open an escrow. Can't change anything that hasn't been accepted, right? So once an offer is accepted or counter offer is accepted, everything is an amendment. Unless you're adding to a new document you issue. So if I issue a request for repair, can I use an addendum? Absolutely. But if I'm changing it after the request for repair negotiation has been agreed to and signed off on, then it would be an amendment. So an extension of time would always be an amendment. So, but we have this document for that extension of time amendment. Okay, and it says that it is amending the terms of the purchase agreement. Okay. What about, could I have an extension of time amendment to an amendment? I could. How about to an addendum? Absolutely. Absolutely.
But addendum is adding to the existing.
Yeah, let's say I had an addendum to the purchase agreement that had a contingency date on there. Then I could amend that addendum with this amendment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I know, it gets confusing. So, guys, once you get into contract, you should always have a copy printed. Go old school. This is something important because you'll be in inspections, you'll be out in the field, you'll be driving, you'll be doing things. A printed copy of your purchase agreement, counter offers, addendums, amendments. Always have that on you. Okay. All right. Extension of time amendment is exactly what it sounds like. So if you need an extension on the close of escrow, you'd use section 1. If there was an extension of any contingency, you would put the date here and you would identify which contingency it is. The most common would be investigation and loan. Those are usually the two that take the longest or run into the most problems. Okay, but if it's something else, you would check other and you would write in what that contingency is. And remember, again, investigation contingency is commonly erroneously referred to as physical contingency. Physical contingency is just one part of investigation contingency. All right, so if investigation contingency is the hand, physical is just one finger. Okay, preliminary title report, insurability, things like that are other fingers on the hand of the investigation contingency. Can you extend just a portion of that hand? Absolutely, you can extend the expiration of one of the fingers of that mother contingency. And if you'd like to see examples of what those are, I highly recommend that you look at a contingency removal form. It will break down all of the different branches on that hand of investigation contingency. All right. Can you create new contingencies in your escrow? Absolutely, you can. You would use an amendment for that. And once that is created, you would again need to either lift that contingency, or if you're not able to lift it on time and you successfully negotiate an extension, you would use this extension of time amendment. Okay. Other extensions, additional terms, you might have something that you need to clarify for an extension. Like, let's say I need to extend the close of escrow. However, I don't know exactly when that's going to take place, because let's say the sellers got delayed on the property they're moving into. We don't know when that's going to happen yet. So what I would draft is under additional terms is the close of escrow is hereby extended to 3, calendar days, or 3 business days, probably business days, since escrow can only close on a business day, following seller's written notification to buyer of their close of escrow on their uplake property, something like that, right? So that's what I'd use additional terms for, is for when these other sections don't quite fit my need. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, again, it's going to have an expiration. Why? Because this is changing terms and the other principal party has to agree to it. We can't unilaterally make changes, right? Otherwise buyers would get them into escrow and they would change the purchase price, send over an amendment to escrow and buy the property for $1, right? No unilateral changes in escrow. Okay. Okay. Modification document. A modification document is like an amendment, except an amendment is only in the from the time you open escrow, from the time you have an accepted agreement. Modification is for when you have a contractual relationship with a single principal, meaning either just buyer or just seller. There's no agreement between a buyer and seller yet because we are not to a point where we have a buyer and seller. So if I have a listing, I have a seller, right? If I need to change the terms of the listing agreement, usually what, guys? What change do I usually make with a seller on a listing?
Price.
Price, exactly. Oh, we're not getting any showings. Oh, no offers, because we're overpriced, like I told you. That kind of thing, right? So price is usually the thing in listings that you are modifying, but not always. So we have price here, we have expiration date, okay? The expiration of the agreement, which could be listing or buyer representation agreement. Okay. So buyer representation or other agreement between principal and broker, right? What is a buyer representation agreement called?
Listing?
No, buyer representation.
Oh, buyer.
What is it? Can anyone tell me what it is?
Insurance policy.
It is a contractual agreement between an agent and a buyer that they are working with them. Okay. For a period of time, for an area, for certain property. I mean, if you're working with a buyer you really don't trust, you can get a buyer representation agreement with them for every property you show them, or just a blanket one for a time frame. I don't typically work with them. I find that it kind of rubs the buyer the wrong way. Every time I've ever seen them used, it's usually a shitty agent who's contractually binding buyers to working with them because they don't do their job. I'm sure that there are times where it's the, where that's not the case, but that's typically how I've seen it. Also, I'm at a point in my career, I don't work with buyers I don't trust. But when I was earlier on in my career, I worked with anyone that could possibly help me make any kind of money because I needed to eat and pay my rent, right? So I would have been more likely to use a buyer representation agreement earlier in my career when I was working with people I didn't trust. Some people use one with every buyer as standard practice. So I don't want to influence you in any way as to your personal choice if you want to use a buyer representation agreement or not. Okay, that is a personal choice for you and how you operate your business. If you're undecided, I would recommend that you print one out, read it, look at it, and make that decision. That is something you should consider as a new agent and how you're going to operate your business. Okay. You should at least know what it says. Backup offer addendum. I'm the queen of backup offers. $1 late? No. Is it $1 short, $1 late? I'm not a $1 short. I'm a day late. Client's like, great, I want it. Write me an offer. I call up the listing agent, super excited. So I've been working with this fucking buyer for 4 months. She goes, sorry, we just accepted an offer. Really? You didn't tell me that yesterday at the open house when I asked if there were any offers. Anyways, what can you do? Well, I recommend to all of my buyer clients that they write a backup offer. Why? Well, what happens with a backup offer is it contractually binds a seller to giving the escrow to you if their current escrow cancels within the terms that are specified on this document. Okay, so we'll look at that. So can you make this an addendum to the purchase agreement? Absolutely, if you know that you're submitting a backup offer. If not, you've already submitted the backup offer, you get the bad news, you're like, hey, listing agent calls you and says, sorry, you guys were second best offer. My client decided to accept the other one. I would say, hey, well, will your seller accept a backup offer? Talk to my buyer. My buyer's like, yeah. So then either the listing agent, and depending upon where we are, whoever needs to respond to the last counter offer, either I need to have the listing agent issue me a counter offer saying that this counter is for backup position number one, or I need, if it's my turn to respond to wherever we left off in the negotiation process, I need to issue a buyer counter offer and say, please see attached backup offer addendum. Okay. And then I would note on here, this box counter offer number blank, or are there any documents that say counter offer? Absolutely not. There are not. So I will always be using other if it's not part of the purchase agreement. There's only buyer counter offer, seller counter offer, and seller multiple counter offer. There is no more blanket counter offer. You will find discrepancies like this all over car forms because their legal team, I think, just gets to things as they get to things. Okay, so you have to read everything. And if you want to be, are you going to be in trouble if you use counter offer? No, but it's not that clear. So make it super clear, other buyer counter offer number two. Got it? Okay. And of course, you would say the legal reference date of that document, enter the buyer and seller names. Okay. So the agreement is for backup position number what? Sometimes you won't get backup position number one. Sometimes it'll be 2 or 3. I don't think I've ever seen anything go past 3 where a buyer ends up with it, but stranger things have happened. So who knows? Any backup offer you can get is good. So it contractually binds the seller to giving the escrow to your client, but your client has absolutely no obligation. So if they found something else in the meantime, that's totally fine. They can walk away from this with no penalty. There's no deposit provided to escrow, so there's no leverage, there's no collateral. So for a buyer, this is a no-brainer. It's just win-win for a buyer. Okay. So backup position can be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. As far as a deadline, there is an expiration. Okay. So a backup offer addendum, you can't make it valid for 2 years, right? What if their escrow falls apart a year from now? Well, courts generally want to protect a seller's right to sell property under current market conditions. So as far as what kind of timeframe I place in section 2B, I typically, as a buyer's agent, will write 90 days in there. Typically 90 days. I like long because it's to my buyer's benefit, right? I don't want to write 30 in there. What happens if on the 35th day escrow falls apart? Well, that seller is no longer obligated to provide my buyer with the opportunity to open escrow. So I like longer versus shorter, but there is such a thing as something, something being an unreasonably long time frame. All right, and then there's options on the backup offer addendum as to how things will be handled, right? So I leave it as it is because there's 2 ways it can be handled. The date the backup offer is accepted is technically, it can be referred to as the date of acceptance for a backup offer. And contingency dates would be calculated from there while there's a subsequent original escrow still ongoing. I don't want that. Right? I don't want to be losing contingency dates I have on an opportunity for an escrow we don't even have open yet, right? So I leave this document alone as it is so that the time periods within the contract start as of the day the seller provides me the proof of cancellation from their previous escrow. That way it's day 1 and we begin our contract contingency deadlines from day one when we're actually able to operate as a buyer. Does that make sense? Okay. That's it, guys. Does anyone have any questions about any of those documents? No?
So the addendum is just to add to existing, and then the amendment is to change. So we're adding to like acceptance,
Yeah.
it's just a change.
Can I do a little pop quiz time? Yeah, all right. We've successfully negotiated inspections, and there's going to be a credit of $10,000 to the buyer. What document am I using? To notify escrow and the lender, what document am I using to notify escrow and the lender? Amendment, because I'm changing something, yeah. How about, I can't fit the specification of how I want a repair done on the request for a repair document. Addendum, yeah, okay. How about this? I'm a listing agent and I have 26 offers, but one is so much better than all of the rest. I've issued a multiple counter offer to all of them to give them a crack at it, and I've told everyone what my highest price is. Everyone's come back to me, and still my original best offer is still best, but they're getting irritated with me. They think I'm shopping their offer, which I absolutely am. And so they've given me a 1 hour expiration on their response to my seller multiple counter offer. And there's just a couple of clarification terms that I need to respond to on theirs if we're going to accept it. What document can I use that doesn't involve the other parties?
Modification?
Nope.
Extension of the.
Counter, seller counter offer, just a singular counter. I'm switching from multiple counter offer to singular counter offer. Yeah,
Can you use other?
I can't modify their counter offer because it hasn't been accepted. I can only counter it. Yeah,
So in you answering only the best buyer, right?
yeah, and I can switch back and forth. I can be having a group conversation with all the buyers with a multiple counter offer while I'm having a one-on-one private counter session with another buyer. But keep in mind, the second that buyer accepts a singular seller counter offer, I can no longer negotiate with the multiple counter offer with the others, right? I can for backup, but once I have an accepted counter offer with the other buyer, I'm done negotiating. I have an escrow. So what can I do so that that buyer cannot accept my offer? What if I need to buy time? What can I do?
Put price like 1 million and higher.
Yes.
That's the final price.
Yes, I place an intangible. What's another crummy one? Loan contingency to be 10 days or fewer. Anything that creates ambiguity makes it so that a buyer cannot accept my terms. Right? All they can do is counter me back to tell me which one they prefer, which one they want. Does anyone at home have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So, for example, I have 25 offers. I can see that the one clearly the best, but I can try, so I can put like the number from this offer and higher, by the way, like fishing around. And if I have still like 6 or some counter offers, buyers counter offers, and I still see that the first one, the best one, so I can stop and negotiate only with this, and then just send him a note that unfortunately seller.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you absolutely can. Here's the thing though, is I don't want to lose these other buyers, so I'm probably still continuing the conversation with multiple counter offer. Maybe I'm really set on this one buyer who's great, so now I'm putting intangibles into my multiple counter offer, trying to bide all of time with all of these other people, right? It can be used both ways. And sometimes I know for a fact we're going to accept this buyer offer, but I want leverage. So I want a great backup offer. So I'm gonna play these other buyers off of the offer I know I'm going to accept so that I can get a great backup offer. That way there's pressure on the buyer that I had a strong feeling we were going to accept with.
Should you discuss every time with the seller?
Absolutely, it is not up to me. I share all of my strategy with my seller.
And
It is
sign
my seller's choice.
every counter offer with the seller sign.
I don't always have the seller acknowledge everything. I mean, if someone wants it, I'll get it. Because if I have 26 offers, that's a lot, right? I might not be doing that. It depends, it's up to my seller. Again, it's up to my seller. But if anyone asks for proof that I reviewed stuff with my seller, I 100% did, and I have no problem providing that to them. Yeah. Anyone who does have an issue providing that to you probably is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Make sense?
Has there ever been a case where you worked for multiple offers and say the seller, one is a family and one is a single wealthy person, and the family has less money, well, a less offer, and the seller says, well, I like them and I want to be that person to give the family, the single person will be fine. Can you accept less if the seller is okay?
You do whatever the seller wants to. It's not up to you. Yeah. If the seller wants to accept an offer that's not the highest,
Is it discrimination or not?
No, not this, well,
is it technically discrimination? Yes. So I would tell them, technically that violates federal fair housing law
Yeah.
because you're giving an advantage based upon familial status.
but that's.
So instead, just tell me that you'd like to accept this offer. I don't need an explanation.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And honestly, my client the seller wouldn't even necessarily know that unless we decided that we wanted to share the love letters to sellers from the buyer. And I presented them. And, or if I shared that information with my clients or not.
So
Most of the time, sellers are very interested in my impression of their potential buyers. So I will be sharing things with them, but again, I advise them, please, I don't need any, comment upon what I'm telling you. I'm giving you factual information, but I don't need any kind of comment back because I don't want to be put in a position where either one of us is violating federal fair housing law. Okay, but yes, seller can make any decision they want to.
and
They don't need to
take a
tell
less-
me why.
And they can take a less
Of course,
offer.
of course.
Okay.
Of course. And I've absolutely had that happen. I mean, I definitely have offers that are lower that get accepted because I'm like, look, let me tell you why I don't think we should work with this buyer. They did offer the best terms and the best price, but I had to, issue a counter offer with 30 additional corrections to their agent because their agent clearly has no idea what they're doing. They are first-time buyers and their agent was, inexperienced enough to let me know that. First-time buyers are generally squirrelier. And because they have an inexperienced agent, it's not necessarily the case, but it's more likely that their agent is not going to have control of them or the experience necessary to quell their fears. We have a very similarly strong offer in these buyers with this agent who I've closed multiple deals with, who's been in the business for 15 years. Beautiful offer. And they're not first-time buyers, so perhaps for a $5,000 difference between this and that, you might want to go with this. Even if my seller says, I don't know, I'll call up listing agent B and I'll be like, seller doesn't want to accept your offer because there's one $5,000 higher, but that agent's an idiot. Can you get your clients up 5K? And that's how I'll do my business. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no more questions, class is over.
Kristen, I have a quick question. Regarding the zip form recording, I can't see it online. I just kind of wanted to review that. Should I watch the one from a year ago? Would that suffice?
Yeah, that'll suffice.
Awesome, thank you.
Why can't you watch it though? Is it just not displaying?
It's not posted yet.
There was one like 2 months ago also,
Okay, cool. I'll
Yeah.
check on that. Thank you.
but it's not posted yet. Also, guys, if you see that classes aren't posted, please email Serena. She should be right on top of that. It should be within 24 hours of my classes that they're posted. I'll talk to her after class today to remind her. But please feel free to email her, just CC me on it. 'Cause I do not look at videos of myself. I refuse. So I have no idea what's up there.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys. Take care. See you tomorrow. Bye.